Today's video is going to be my spoiler-free review of Eldest by Christopher Paolini. This is book 2 in the inheritance cycle. Did I wear red purposefully for this video? No, but I think it works out pretty well, and I'm pretty happy about it, okay? If you haven't seen my review for Eragon, go ahead and check it out. It is linked upstairs in the cards and downstairs in the description. First of all, I want to address some of my kind of critiques from book 1 to see how they developed. Did I change my mind? Did I not? How am I feeling about my critiques from book 1? My main critiques for book 1 pretty much went underneath the umbrella of writing style. The writing style being juvenile and the point of view not really working 100% for me. In terms of Paolini's writing, I feel like it improved a lot from book 1. There were some scenes that were in this book that I just think were written so well. For example, a funeral happens within the story, and the location of the burial site and also the culture surrounding the ceremony of the funeral itself were just so beautifully written that I was honestly shedding a tear. There's also a motivational speech that a certain character delivers in a time in which the people around them are just so broken and so lost and just absolutely destroyed. They've lost everything. And this certain character gives like a grand Braveheart-like speech. Even my dead cold heart was like, yeah, we can do this, guys. It was just so uplifting. And so there were certain scenes like that that just really stood out for me, and I just loved them. My other main complaint about book 1 was that this book is written in third-person limited point of view, and that POV only really works for me if there are multiple POV chapters. And in the first book, we are only following Eragon's POV. However, that changes in this book. We are introduced to a multiple POV system, and it just worked so much better for me. So much so that I genuinely cared about the characters that we got a POV from, and I was actively enjoying them as I was reading them. I even found myself looking forward to one POV in particular, perhaps even more than Eragon's chapters, okay? I know in my Eragon review I talked about the farm boy fantasy structure and how it kind of expands, and in this story we get even more of that expansion. I feel like the world grows a lot because we are traveling with Eragon as he is making his way to begin his training as a writer. Now, in the first book, the traveling felt a little bit cumbersome for me, but in this one, we learned a lot about the world and also about the different races in this world. We learned so much about their cultures as we were traveling with certain characters to our final destination. Paolini is a guy that loves a good detail, and I love that for him. I really appreciate that the elves and the dwarves and the dragons all have their own distinct cultures. There's no like overlapping, they don't get muddled together. They're very distinct and they're very defined. They have their own cultural norms. They have their own ways to greet someone who is of a higher station than you. They have their own religions that are documented within this story. Some examples of the things that Eragon learns throughout this is how to greet an elf of a higher station and not offend people, and also the dwarves' creation story, which I found so fascinating. I was not expecting to have a religious discussion within this little dragon story, but I really found it so insightful and thought-provoking and surprisingly deep. Now, some of the details that Paolini includes went outside of even my own realm of curiosity, like the fact that the elves have no down there hair. Like, I didn't need to know that, Paolini, but I appreciate the gesture, okay? One thing that I felt helped me a lot with getting through these little details that I felt were a little bit clunky in book 1 was I did an immersion read for this book, so I listened to the audiobook and I read at the same time, and I really do feel like that helped with my experience. One thing that I do wonder is that there are so many little quirks and specific details that we learn about the different cultures in this book, and I'm wondering if the plethora of information that we received is going to have a greater impact on the plot as a whole, or if it's going to come back in some meaningful fashion, or if all of those little details were just put in there to kind of flesh out the cultures. If that's the case, I'm not sure whether or not I will look on these little details that I have collected like a little dragon in a favorable light, or if I will be of the front that it was completely useless to have added all of this information as like a fluff barrier. One thing that I struggled with in this book is that, in my opinion, Paolini is not the best at writing battle sequences. A lot of the times as these fights and these training montages were happening, I was just solely going off of vibes because I genuinely could not understand what was going on, whose limbs were where, who was slashing who. I just had to go with it until the end of the battle, until I could see the outcome of what happened. Also within this book, there are some deaths that happened, and I cannot put my finger on why, but they just seemed so lame. I don't know if it's the lack of detail or what, but it was like between one sentence and the next, someone would have died, and I was like, what? They're dead now? Okay, all right, okay, fine. The deaths happened so quickly and so suddenly and with such a lack of razzle-dazzle that I was just like, okay. The deaths were quick, they were easy, and I also felt like they were really, really convenient to the plot. And that's another thing that stood out to me as a critique of this one is the amount of plot conveniences. A lot of the times, the solutions were given just at the perfect time. If you picture a man who's walking through the desert, he's starving, he's dying, he's having a rough go, and the minute that he decides that he can no longer go on, a food truck drives by him and asks if he needs a ride. That was pretty much how some of the solutions were found in this. It was like we were struggling with these certain things, and then right at the most opportune moment, boom, there's something and it just solves it and we're done with that portion. It was just very convenient. It was just convenient. Throughout the story and also throughout his training, I feel like Eragon became a lot more introspective. He's less quick to make impulsive decisions that would negatively affect those around him. I feel like his mental maturity has definitely grown throughout the course of this book. I also really like that we see him genuinely struggling with some of the things that he's being taught. I feel like with a lot of different things, Eragon picks up on things really, really quickly, and it's just not believable. But in this book, you actually get to see him struggling with different things and figuring out a way to overcome the problem. I feel like within this story, both with the training that he receives and also the more experience that he gets and the information that he finds out about the world, we're watching Eragon become a writer and not just a fighter. I also really loved Saphira in this one. I know that in my previous review I said that she was kind of like an ancient mother hen, but I really feel like we get the kind of playfulness of Saphira in this book. I think it's easy to forget that she is so young because she feels so ancient and otherworldly at certain points, but in this book I feel like we really get to see her youthfulness shine through, and I thought it was so much fun. And because of the youthfulness and the playfulness throughout this book, you can definitely see how much she has learned throughout the book and also how much she still needs to learn even after the book is finished. I mentioned that we get other POV chapters in this book, and Roran is one of those POV chapters. Roran is Eragon's cousin. After the events of book 1, I was definitely wanting to hear from Roran, like what is going on, how is everyone dealing with the aftermath of Eragon's decisions, and Roran delivers, okay? Roran's POV chapters actually became arguably my favorite in the entire book. I loved his story arc. He becomes a leader. He becomes someone that other people around him can count on. He becomes the person that is willing to do the difficult tasks that are necessary, but that other people cannot or won't do. And I loved him. He's my favorite character. Can you tell? What Paolini did with Roran's arc in this book is just amazing, because as Eragon is going on this massive adventure with Saphira, Roran is going on his own adventure that is arguably just as interesting as Eragon's. Roran is my favorite at this point in the series. Roran is my favorite. Another thing that comes along with the character development is, unfortunately, the romance. The romance, I don't like it. There's multiple romances in this book that I feel like Paolini really wants to happen, and I do not want them to happen whatsoever. I don't like them. I don't connect with them. I'm not enjoying them. I got serious secondhand embarrassment from multiple scenes in the book. Some of the characters also got secondhand embarrassment from some of these people's actions, and I don't like it, and I wish that it would just disappear. And I really don't see the chemistry between these characters at all. So I hope that those go away, but I know that they're probably not, but it's fine. It's fine. I can just overlook it. I can overlook the cringe, okay? So overall, this was a major step up from book 1, and I'm genuinely surprised at just how much I liked Eldest over Eragon. There were a few things that didn't 100% click with me, but I'm interested to see how they pan out in future books. But that was my spoiler-free review of Eldest by Christopher Paolini. Let me know down below if there are any specific books that you would like me to review. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already. I will see you next time.